Okay. Now there are a few other things on this file, and I'm going to put up the file in about a couple hours. But there are a few other things on this particular Excel spreadsheet that might be a good idea to look at. And of course there's the regression results. Specifically, I go over things like trend lines, how to make one, if you will. And generally what you do, and I have an example there, and so what you do, first you generate an XY scatter diagram. You right-click on it, click Add Trend Line. And there's several options. Recommend selecting linear, because linear trend line is generally what we deal with. Sometimes you get some interesting things. You can actually put in a moving average if you wanted to. And then other things that are important. Display the equation and display the R squared. Reason why? This is your model. This is your regression model. So y equals 26.8x plus 970. There's our model. And R squared, that is how much of the variability is explained by our trend line. So this trend line explains 96% of what's going on. So that's how to make a trend line. Now seasonality gets kind of interesting. And I give a couple of examples here as well on the spreadsheet. Now there's two main ways, again, to go and deal with seasonality. The first is what you call a seasonal indice, or seasonal index, I guess, to be what's termed grammatically correct. So the way it works with seasonal indices, first you take the data, and we have the data here, and we come up with a trend line. So we have a trend line here. Y is equal to 12.7x plus 177. So we have our equation. We then put that equation and the results of it and find the result for each month. So we have that right here. This is what the trend equation is telling us should occur for this month, for January. And we compare these actual results to our forecast, to our trend line. And we see that for January, well, we're a little higher than normal here. Same way, January, we're a little higher here. And what we do is we calculate the percentage that we're above in January, our actual results are above, compared to our forecast. So in general, we're going to be our actual results for January are 1.06 above what our forecast is, what our trend line is saying. So what we can then do is, for a forecast going forward, use our trend line, use our trend results, and multiply that times the seasonal adjustment. So if it's January, we multiply the trend result times 1.06. If it's February, or if it's March, or actually a better example, if it's May, we multiply that result by 0.87, because in general, in May, it's less than our usual. So we first come up with the trend equation. We then find the percentage that our actual results are above that trend. And each time it's that season, each time it's that month, we multiply that trend equation by that seasonal index to get a seasonally adjusted equation. So that's how to have a seasonal index within Excel. Now the other thing that you see to deal with seasonality is multiple linear regression. Here we have variables for all of these months except one. We always leave one out. There's a good reason why. When we come up with these formulas, we always use 1 month as a base case. For instance, in this case, we're using January as a base case. Now, you'll note one other thing with the month. It's linear. The month itself is linear. So we have that trend portion of it, and that deals with the trend. But for the seasonality, if it's January, the variables for February through December are going to be 0. It's February. The variable for February is going to be 1, but the value for all the others is going to be 0. So we can then put this in a multiple linear regression. And this, well, this is what we get as a result. So, here's a question. Of these, how many of these are we going to use to calculate for any given month, for a particular given month? The reason I point this out is because you think, okay, a lot of numbers in this formula, it's going to be complicated, right? Well, here's the thing. If it's... Oh, did you have an answer?
I was going to say 1 in the intercept. So, one of the coefficients and then the intercept.
One of you're almost right. So 2, but there is one other, and that is the trend here, the month. So 3 all total, but yes. Most of these, suppose we're forecasting for July. Well, July is going to be 1, so it would be 1 times negative 29.67. And that would be a part of our model. But all these others are going to be 0. So when it comes to calculating, well, for July, you're not going to use those for that month. So when it comes to actually calculating, just use that, use the month, which is the trend portion, and the intercept. Okay? So what does this mean? What do these coefficients mean? Well, these coefficients are in relation to some base case. So in this case, it's saying, on average, in May, our results are going to be 97 less than they are in January. In November, our results are going to be 22 more than they are in January. That's what these numbers indicate. All of these monthly coefficients are in relation to some base month, some base time. Okay, so that is going to be up and available in Blackboard in a few hours. Again, I don't want to put it up right away because, well, problem is I'm not sure what section is which with regard to the numbers and with regard to the sections. So